Today, let's jump into Joe Rogan's reaction to Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. The UFC 313 headliner didn't leave everyone buzzing, but before we continue, don't forget to like the video to support the channel. Since Pereira's loss, many have debated whether the UFC now has an issue with boring champions. However, Joe Rogan sees it differently. Not only was the fight exciting, but Ankalaev proved he's a force to be reckoned with. Long before this fight was booked, many believed the UFC intentionally avoided the matchup, fearing Ankalaev would dethrone Pereira. After all, Pereira has become one of the sport's biggest draws, knocking out top opponents and securing 2 titles. On a recent podcast episode, Rogan broke down why Ankalaev's performance thoroughly impressed him.
We were just talking UFC. We were talking about how exciting the Ankalaev and Pereira fight was, even though people didn't like it because it wasn't like some crazy result, a giant knockout like you get in most Pereira fights, but it was so technical. And Ankalaev just did a fantastic job of shutting down the scariest guy in the division. Well, it was so interesting because the consequences of exchanging with Pereira are so high, but also Ankalaev. Ankalaev's knocked a lot of people out. We always look at Pereira's knockouts, but Ankalaev has knocked out some of the best guys in the division. And he only lost one time, and that was Paul Craig has the nastiest triangle. It's so sneaky and so quick, and you don't expect it. He's so high level off his back, and he caught him, I think, with like 1 second to go in the 3rd round, a fight that he was losing. Yeah. And also, most people don't want to be on their back, so they don't even practice off their back. And the common thought amongst coaches is when you're on your back, there's 2 minutes to go, you're probably not going to pull a submission off. You got to concentrate on getting back up to your feet, minimizing whatever scoring your opponent has done by taking you down, and whatever shots they've landed, mitigate those as much as possible and get to the feet as quickly as possible. Yeah. That's what everybody's trying to do now.
No one can deny that Ankalaev is an incredibly well-rounded and talented fighter. We're talking about a guy who has lost just once, and that was 7 years ago. While Ankalaev has delivered some impressive finishes, he's also had fights that drew more yawns than cheers. But what do you think of Ankalaev? Do you see him defeating Pereira again if the UFC books an immediate rematch? Now let's talk about UFC fighters stepping up for Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett. As of now, this fight is still set for UFC 314, so if you've been eagerly waiting, you'll have to keep holding on. However, rising lightweight Mauricio Rufy recently made it clear that if either fighter drops out, he wants the UFC to call him. The dangerous lightweight took to social media, posting in Portuguese, "UFC, I'm ready to face Michael Chandler or Paddy Pimblett if the fight falls through. I'm 100% physically ready. You have my number, just call." Since Rufy isn't a top 15 ranked lightweight yet, it's unclear if he'd be the UFC's first choice. That said, he's coming off a stunning highlight reel knockout of King Green at UFC 313. Would you want to see Rufy step in against either Pimblett or Chandler? Another fighter ready to jump in is Jared Gordon. If you remember, Gordon fought Pimblett in December 2022 and lost by unanimous decision, though many believed he won. While appearing on the Home of Fight podcast, Gordon shared his thoughts on the possibility of stepping in at UFC 314.
You want to make up for that real quick?
Told April.
Miami, I assume.
I doubt it. Unless my teammate Chandler falls off the car and I get my rematch with Paddy. I've been manifesting it. No offense to Mike. He's my buddy. And that's how opportunities come about, and you have to seize the moment. So, I mean, of course, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, of course, like I want it to happen, but I just wanted to, for some reason have like an emergency and pull off the card, and I'm right here. I'm like walking around at like 171, 172. I can make weight on a 4 or 5 day, 3 day.
You're just ready. So. You're ready. You're
I'm
trying
ready,
to speak
bro.
into it.
There's no doubt that Chandler is the bigger name at 155, but if he were to pull out, many fans would love to see Gordon run it back with Pimblett. Despite his controversial fight with Paddy, Gordon admitted that the brash lightweight is a dangerous fighter, just like Chandler. Both are dangerous because they constantly push forward. Paddy throws flashy moves, flying knees, high kicks, and low kicks, while Chandler is a savage who throws bombs. When patient, he can be extremely dangerous, but if he falls into his old habits, that's where Paddy could capitalize. Both fighters need to be disciplined and execute their game plans effectively. Who do you have winning this fight, Pimblett or Chandler? Speaking of Paddy Pimblett, he just sent a message to Michael Chandler. As UFC 314 approaches, Pimblett took to his YouTube channel to address fans who believe he's going to get knocked out. Here's what he had to say.
It was also nice to size Chandler up. Like, a lot of people were surprised at how much bigger I am than him when I knew I was going to be that much bigger than him. I'm on to show everyone that the old guard's on the way out and the new guard's coming in. Funny, everyone's saying he's trying to knock me out. I don't think he's going to get near me on the feet. Everyone thinks Mike's just going to come out and knock me out, lad, and I won't stand with him. Just like everyone thought they wouldn't stand with Bobby Green, but the striking's got so much better since the Bobby Green fight, and he's underestimating me, I think. Thinks he's fighting the same Paddy what fought Jared Gordon, lad, when I'm a completely different fighter now. I've evolved.
Dana White gets warned by boxing promoter. Following the news that Dana White is finally stepping into the boxing world, one of the sport's top promoters has made it clear. It won't be easy. If you've followed White for a while, you know. He's long talked about promoting boxing while also trashing the business side of the sport. Recently, it was announced that White has teamed up with Saudi Arabia's Turki Al Sheikh to launch TKO Boxing, a new promotion claiming to revolutionize the sport. TKO Boxing aims to follow a league-based model similar to the UFC. Since the news broke, Matchroom Sport chairman Eddie Hearn shared his thoughts with IFL TV, warning White about the challenges ahead. Boxing is the worst business in the world. I hope these guys are ready to be up all night and sleep with one eye open because you can't expect to have control like the UFC, Hearn said. His comments aren't surprising, but White is no stranger to the struggles of combat sports. He's often criticized boxing's business structure, yet TKO Boxing may face serious pushback, especially if it tries to implement the UFC's pay model, which is vastly different from boxing's revenue split. The big question remains, will White and TKO Boxing succeed? Can it dominate the sport like the UFC does in MMA? Tom Aspinall rates UFC fighters. Tom Aspinall has cemented himself as one of the world's top heavyweights and most dangerous fighters. Naturally, when he was recently asked to rate some of the UFC's biggest stars out of 10, fans were eager to hear his take. As the MMA world waits to see if and when Aspinall will face Jon Jones later this year, the English powerhouse gave his ratings on several UFC champions and contenders. Check it out.
This is Tom Aspinall, and this is me rating the following fighters out of 10.
Yuri Prohaska,
8.5.
Alex Volkanovski,
9.
Michael Chandler,
7.
Alex Pereira,
9.
Dricus Du Plessis,
9.5. Because he makes that unorthodox style work for him, and none of his opponents have any idea how to deal with it. It's a super smart fighter.
Sean Strickland,
8.5.
Cyril Gane,
8.
Alexander Volkov,
8.5.
Jamal Hill,
8.5.
finally Jon Jones.
9.5. Nobody can be the perfect fighter, but he's close to it. He's definitely close.
Michael Chandler's rating of 7 might raise some eyebrows, but when you compare it to the rest of the list and Tom Aspinall's other ratings, it's not all that shocking. Do you think Chandler deserves a 7 based on Aspinall's scale? And what about Jamahal Hill and Jiri Prochaska both receiving 8.5s? If Alexander Volkanovski is rated a 9 and Jon Jones a 9.5, where does that leave Islam Makhachev, who wasn't even rated? Given that he has beaten Volkanovski twice, wouldn't that make him a 9.5 as well? Share your thoughts in the comments. Moving on to UFC updates, AG Fight recently reported that Molly McCann will face off against Ailsia Tenorio at the UFC's upcoming London card instead of Estela Nunes. Meatball McCann is looking to bounce back from her unanimous decision loss to Bruna Brazil at UFC Manchester last July, a fight that followed her submission win over Diana Belbita in February 2024. Meanwhile, Tenorio will make her UFC debut after securing a decision win over Rose Conceição on Dana White's Contender Series. Also, the UFC has officially requested a license to move its May 17th event from Qatar to the Apex in Las Vegas, according to Nolan King from MMA Junkie. Expected matchups include Park Jun-yong versus Ismail Naurdiev, Johnny Walker versus Azamat Mirzakhanov, Sergey Spivak versus Shamil Gaziev, and Curtis Blades versus Rizvan Kuniev. In other news, Daniel Cormier recently shared his thoughts on the UFC lightweight division, outlining his ideal matchups while warning Islam Makhachev about a potential no-win situation if he faces Ilia Topuria. Following Justin Gaethje's win over Rafael Fiziev at UFC 313, fans have been debating his next move. While many want to see him challenge Makhachev, the belief is that Topuria will get the next title shot. On his YouTube channel, Cormier suggested, Topuria versus Makhachev, book it. Gaethje versus Tsarukyan, book it. Whoever wins fights Makhachev. Oliveira should go fight Dustin Poirier in New Orleans, and if he wins, he's next. It's a logical plan. But do you think Gaethje can get past Tsarukyan? Cormier also pointed out how Makhachev's legacy could be questioned if he beats Topuria, as critics might argue he only defended his belt against featherweights. Since he has already beaten Volkanovski twice, Makhachev may see moving to welterweight as a more meaningful challenge. Meanwhile, reports suggest that Makhachev versus Topuria and Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev are being targeted for UFC 317 in June. If true, that card could be huge. In unfortunate news, concerns have risen over BJ Penn's well-being after disturbing videos surfaced of him claiming that an imposter has replaced his mother to steal his family's wealth. Jared Gordon, who has been open about his past struggles with substance abuse, speculated that Penn's behavior could be linked to methamphetamine use, citing paranoia and delusions. He stated, "From what I've heard and seen, it just screams meth use." Hopefully, Penn gets the help he needs. Finally, Jon Jones's new haircut has become the latest meme in the MMA world. The champ debuted a fresh look that some compared to an Avatar character, and fans wasted no time roasting him. Alongside mocking his hair, critics again accused him of dodging Tom Aspinall. Comments included, "He's doing everything except fighting Aspinall," and "When the MMA world needed him most, he vanished." Others compared it to his old prison mugshot or joked, "The arrow on his head shows the direction he'll fall when Aspinall knocks him out." What do you think of Jones's new look? Let us know in the comments.